So it is demo season, with developers showcasing their games at trade shows and Steam showcasing their games with various events. And my recent video on the top 20 upcoming roguelikes of 2025 got an amazing response, with tons of you dropping comments, making recommendations of other roguelike games I should be checking out. And some developers have even reached out and asked me to test their games. So I put together a list of the most recommended games and played all of their demos. And today I want to show my thoughts. If your suggestion isn't in the list, I'm sorry, there were just so many that I had to go through. I had to knock some out of the video. Instead of ranking these though from best to worst, I've grouped them into 4 categories. Call it a tier list really. Firstly, needs more time but has something. Secondly, has some real potential and I want to keep an eye on it. Thirdly, had to wishlist it as I absolutely loved it. And fourthly, I am 100% buying because I couldn't put it down. Before I get into it, I just want to say thanks to everyone that has supported me. It's been a crazy time in the recent few months and I'm getting very close to that 1,000 subs. Please hit that like and subscribe button to help me out. Once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I plan to give back a little bit as I have some game keys that maybe I could give away. So let's get into it, and thanks to all. So first up, we'll go through the category that I felt needs a bit more time, but really has something interesting. First on that list is Wave Defense Trappist. It's a very unique art style and control system. The game itself is a top-down tower defense with kind of roguelike elements, where the player commands a mech exploring the Trappist solar system, searching for rare crystals. The player will build its base and exploit the soil for its resources and defend the outposts against alien waves. The thing that's really quite interesting and unique about this game is it's developed by an underground techno music producer called Kima Kapoor. Now, one of the things that I found really got me into this game was the music. It synchronizes to the escalating challenges of alien waves, so the soundtrack really keeps you going and kind of points you in the right direction of what you need to do, or how you need to fight, I should say. You can customize your mech, you have dynamic kind of roguelike progression and strategic base building as well, where you can construct and upgrade defensive structures. You can build buildings to kind of fortify your base as well. It's got something to it. I just feel that it was missing something. Felt like it needs a little bit more time in my opinion, but is definitely worth a look if you're into this style of game. The art kind of reminded me a little bit of No More Heroes. And the game also felt like it had a little bit of inspiration from Total Annihilation, a very old RTS game, in how you control your commander. Be sure to check it out if this looks interesting. Next up is Tower of Babel, Survivors of Chaos. This is essentially a Vampire Survivors-like, with Path of Exile or Diablo style kind of gearing systems in how you can get, a head piece of armor, body piece of armor, gloves, feet, etc. But they've also added in some kind of home base management in between runs. There's a really kind of nice concept here, a nice blend between a few different inspirations. One thing that definitely needed some work with this one was the audio, which I found got particularly repetitive, and the combat feels a little bit off in the movements. However, they've got a really interesting concept. No doubt that it has some potential with a bit of extra tweaking and a bit more content. Obviously, I've only played the demo. There's going to be more to this game and it's not due to be out yet. So I want to keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens. Next in the category is Starless Abyss, a dark, atmospheric, turn-based deck builder. But what I like with this is the fact that you are controlling multiple craft or starships, whatever you want to call them, in a grid system. Think of it a bit like playing XCOM, where instead of you having units, you've got ships. It's a well thought out system. I felt it did lack a little bit of polish and personality, but it had some really good mechanics. The cards were well thought out. You can also embrace the occult, as there's some kind of Cthulhu vibes to this a little bit. I just feel like it needs a little bit more time to iron out some of the kinks. Personally, it didn't grip me in the same way as, say, Cobalt Core, which is another kind of card-based battling sci-fi game, which you should check out. But I can see that with a bit of polish, with a bit more work, there's definitely something to this. And I think the meta progression that they're adding seems to be something that will really push this further. Now on to Desperate Place, a sci-fi wave-based survival game where you build defenses against an alien swarm. Some interesting mechanics, obviously inspired by Thronefall, with some kind of old-fashioned Red Alert in there for sure. The game needs a bit of refinement to make the combat feel a bit more satisfying. I felt that controlling your little guy, you didn't feel particularly powerful. The impact of your weapons wasn't that great. However, I did like the diverse set of buildings that you're able to build, and I felt like the difficulty curve with this was really well put. The setting and the art was really nice as well for a kind of smaller roguelike. I think this has got some real potential with some tweaks to how it feels in terms of the combat. Another plus for this, I think, was how you manage your resources as opposed to, say, Thronefall, where you just have your gold. This, you need to also balance how much power your base has while also generating your crystals to do some upgrades. Lastly, in this grouping, we have Driveloop. It is a very simple concept. Vampire Survivors, but if you're in a car in a steampunk gangster style world. Now, the demo doesn't have too much content yet, but I found myself oddly drawn to this after a few runs. It plays really well and the upgrades are decent throughout. You need to recruit various kind of gang members, if you like, to sit in the various seats of your car and shoot with their various weapons out of the car. The game is early in development, but with more content could be something really fun. There's nothing wrong with being a Vampire Survivors clone if you get everything right. There is a planned release date for this of the 9th of April. The demo only has one zone to begin with, but you can see the various different upgrades that are available. I honestly believe from how the game controls that it feels really good and could be something quite special. Now let's move on to the next category of games. So all these games I believe have some real potential and I want to keep a close eye on for how their development moves forward, but also the minute they're on a deal, I'll probably be picking them up. First on that list is Afterblast. This is literally a Doom roguelike mixed with a bit of Immortal Redneck or Returnal, a simple first-person, fast-paced roguelike shooter, and it does that beautifully. Honestly, this is just that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is aiming on getting the gameplay perfect, but don't expect too much in the way of story, but the mechanics and how it feels to dart around shooting these enemies in these environments is really addictive. I found myself falling into this one quite hard, but I just feel like there could be more with some more story or more personality to it. Next up in this category is Broventure. This one really kind of caught me off guard. It's obviously inspired by Cult of the Lamb, and this co-op roguelike where you and your bro take on increasingly difficult challenges has real something to it. The combat is where it needs a little bit of work. It felt a little too samey or a little too stale, and I felt that there was no real impact to your weapons. However, this is another Vampire Survivors based combat system, noticing a pattern I feel. But the upgrade system is a bit different and has some real depth to it. The resource generation and gear is what I found really elevated this, where you go back to your home base and you're able to craft new bits of gear based on the resources that you gather during the level. I liked the variety of the environments that you fought in, and the crafting, as I said, did add a little bit of something over and above what Cult of the Lamb had in terms of craft. It's really worth a look if you were a lover of Cult of the Lamb and you like playing some co-op style roguelikes. I think it's got something to it. Check it out. Now, this next one on the list is definitely something different. CraftÄ Crafty, not 100% sure how it's meant to be pronounced. Have you ever played Infinite Craft or any of those games where you mix elements to find something new, putting fire and water together and getting lava, that kind of thing? It's very much like that. Or if you've ever played Stacklands, another great roguelike. You are a villager and have a village to defend, and you also need to defeat the dungeons. Now, all of this is played on one screen where you have multiple cards. Every time your villager interacts with something or explores an area, you're going to get different cards with different resources, which you can use to make gear or buildings, and there's a real puzzle to having to work out what works with what. One thing that I will say is this game is incredibly punishing for new starters and new beginners. There is a timeline that you are constantly working against where the dungeon is spawning enemies, but also your villagers are going hungry. The minute that hunger bar hits 0, they die, and that's that. Obviously, you can spawn multiple villagers, but the more you have, the more you need to feed. There's something really unique with this game that I was loving, and I feel like with a bit of extra polish, this could be something really quite special. So I'm keeping my eye on the development of this because it's one that I really would like to see flourish. Now, I can imagine some people are going to be unhappy with where I've put this in terms of the categorization, but next up is Hellclock. This is an action RPG roguelike with amazing art style and some real heart behind it. They even call it an Exile-like, which as a Path of Exile player, I love. The skill system is lovely. The gear is decent, if bloated at times. And right now for me, what holds it back is the control system, which I know they are working on. They literally say it in their Steam bio that they're working on the control system, and hey, it is a demo at the moment after all. But the environments that you're going through, the ways you have to fight, the amount of meta progression you can see there is going to draw me to this game. Only reason I can't put it higher at the moment is it was frustrating to control at times. But don't let the difficulty of the control system put you off this one. It's beautiful to play and there is a lot to it. Next in this category is Tower Dominion. As the name kind of suggests, this is a tower defense roguelike again, with some real depth to it. This one was suggested because of my love of Emberward. The amount of tower combinations in this is what I found really set it apart. And what I really like is you can also balance units you send out with the various economic buildings and buff style buildings as well, not just towers. I think they need to work on the unit to enemy interaction. The units just walk through the enemies. I'd like to see them actually have some level of combat to them, but I really enjoyed the art style, the way it felt like an old-fashioned Red Alert game with the various upgrades you need to put in place. I liked the fact that there was different resources you needed to gather in order to upgrade things. It has a real something to it. This is another standout tower defense game for sure. Last in this category is Rogueloops. This is obviously inspired by a few games with combat much like Hades, a story that has strands of Children of Mortia, but then it has the unique premise that the game takes place in a circle, which is cut into parts, and you rotate with each part being a room, if you like. You rotate room to room with each segment being given buffs or curses to change what happens in that room as you rotate around, increasing in difficulty and reward. The unique mechanic for me isn't quite enough, but the art style, the music, the actual way the combat feels is all top notch, and I love the skill tree system as well. But all in all, this will be a really great and fun game at a decent price. Plus, I've only played the demo so far, as we know. More content is to come, I'm sure, and this one's out on the 4th of April. I will be dipping into this to see how it gets on, but I want to keep an eye on what changes. Now let's move into games that I have put straight onto my wish list after playing the demo and are looking forward to trying out more of. First up, we have Standalone. Now, while Windblown was the next game from the devs of Dead Cells, Standalone in many ways is the spiritual successor in my opinion. You play as a robo-sheep, fighting off wolves sent from Dr. Wolf. Yes, that is his name. The art in this is so cutesy and so beautiful. The gameplay and combat is really crisp. It's a 2D platformer action roguelike. The writing and comedy is great, and there's a lot to love here if you are a lover of action roguelikes. I don't think that this is anything overly different, but they are just getting everything right. Great fun to play as a demo. I highly recommend the demo, which is obviously free, so try it out. Now we have Nordhold, a Nordic-inspired roguelike tower defense, again with base building mechanics. Nordhold is for strategy enthusiasts who crave high replayability through endless combinations. There is a huge amount of depth to how you can upgrade towers, the resources to focus on, what buildings to buff or even use at all, the heroes to choose, the banners that can change your synergies with your towers. It gets more and more complex with every playthrough, and this is very much for players who strive for those high scores and endless runs. This is definitely for you if that fits your criteria. I think this has a lot of heart, a lot of complexity, and could go really far in the tower defense kind of genre. Check it out. Next up is Nine Kings. I can see this game having a very deep replay value and progression. I love Nine Kings. You have to make a kingdom to defend, and you draw cards to get upgrades, build various buildings within your small grid that you have to build with, which does expand over time. Each king has their kingdom to fight with, and for their own faction of units and types. You build your army from the buildings and cards you choose, and there is a massive amount of kind of theory crafting to be done here to find the best builds in this kind of auto battler, if you like. I'll look forward to seeing how much further this game goes, as I want to see how deep the theory crafting can go in the full game. From a deck builder to a pixelated RPG called He Is Coming. Pause. Think loop hero if you weren't in a loop. Choose your path to fight enemies, to get loot, seek other encounters, and pursue a multitude of strategies and synergies, as it has over 350 different items at your disposal. Also, it has a asynchronous multiplayer mode that they're talking about. It seems simple at first, but the meta progression is the thing that will keep this game going. There is just so much to unlock and progress with. The combat is automatic based on the items that you've gained that you use in a sequential order. The items you have will trigger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a particular order, and you can use different sets of gear to get different bonuses. But I can just tell that there's going to be much more to this going further. If you don't care about graphics that much and you love gameplay that lasts forever, this one's for you. Now, I'm starting to see a theme with how these demos are coming across. The next one is Wool at Gates, roguelike tower defense. Yep, cheap again. It sounds ridiculous, but it really works, and I'm hooked. This is evidently inspired by Thronefall as well, and plays very similarly. But the big difference here that makes it so interesting is the fact that the buildings that you choose and the troops you choose have particular races or factions and various classes. So you have humans, orcs, elves, and all of those have 3 classes themselves, during the demo at least. These factions then work in a kind of EFT style classes and synergies, where if you get enough of the same type, you get various buffs. It makes for a complex and interesting twist on this tower defense. I really loved it. Plus, it's hilarious fighting sheep that have dynamite on. Next up, another deck builder, Become the Moon. Now, have you ever loved Hearthstone? Then why not try out a purposefully built roguelike version, which has fantastic depth and some kind of unique mechanics to it. It plays as an auto battler with a huge amount to think about, and it has so much customization in the decks and units you can use. I don't feel like I need to say much more about this. It is exactly that, a roguelike Hearthstone game that I feel is going to scratch the itch for a lot of Hearthstone lovers. The music is great, the difficulty arc is really well done, as is the tutorial, all while you can tell that there is going to be a deep level of complexity to how you can build, get further and further. I'm really excited about Become the Moon. I can see it being a new addiction for me for sure. Now let's move into that top tier of games that I know I will 100% be buying when they come out, because I couldn't put them down. And first on that list is a weird one. Nubby's Number Factory. Right, bear with me before you say anything. I know this game is already out firstly, but it has a demo for those people that look at it and think, is that really any good? And this was pointed out to me in my last video. This game looks as if it is made by a 10-year-old doing a school project, and if it has, more power to them. It is greatly addictive and bloody brilliant. I bought it already because it only cost £4. This is cheap, addictive roguelike. It's a Peggle or pachinko machine style game about combining the right items to increase your score. Look, I know it doesn't look all that good, but roguelikes are typically at gameplay first, and you need to try this out to know what I mean, and that's what demos are for. Go and check this demo out because it's got so much heart and personality to it that some games just don't have, and it has an amazingly addictive gameplay. Plus, I'm not the only one that thinks this game is great, with an overwhelmingly positive score on Steam already. So why not try a demo for a game that's only £4 anyway? Check it out. Let's move on to another fantastic game, In Shape of Dreams. This is on the other end of the spectrum to Nubby's Number Factory, a unique game that blends action roguelike with MOBA style gameplay. Venturing into the deep world, you'll edit your hero's memories and create your own champion. You can face challenges solo, or you can play with up to 4 of you co-op. It's got deep gear customization using gems or essence to change your various attacks. The combat feels amazing. The game does have a demo, but it also has a fully playable prologue, which I highly recommend. The dream world is ever changing in this procedurally generated world where dream dwellers and quests and various events and hidden secrets are all there to be found, with over 200 collectibles. It's so polished, an absolute must play demo. Next up is Cesto. This one caught me off guard. In Cesto, your goal is to explore a random dungeon in search of the lost son. Each screen has 4 rooms you enter with a click. You choose the room, but not the outcome. An enemy, a chest, a trap, a secret, what will be waiting, you can't tell. As you progress, you'll need to weigh the risks of each room. Your character will grow stronger, and with the help of items and skills, you can manipulate the chance to tilt the odds in your favor. At first, I really didn't get the appeal of this, as you're just playing the odds, but as you get further and further, it's more than that, with an almost rhythmic way of playing it. The fact that your items and upgrades simply change the chance of a particular outcome out of the 4 choices is very unique. I don't think I've really seen this being done before. I found myself wanting to play more and more, and to be honest, the demo does already have a lot. It's got an interesting passive skill tree, and you're able to bring coins back up to the surface in order to do those upgrades. I recommend giving it a go as something fresh and different, and I have to say, I love the death graphics, they're bloody hilarious. Back in the puzzle realm, I've got Infinity Sweeper. This is very simply a Minesweeper roguelike. If you were like me and spent time in school playing Minesweeper during IT lessons rather than doing what you were meant to, then this is a fresh take on that memory. The game follows the same rules as Minesweeper, but with some unique roguelike elements through it, with tiles that you can choose from that might then appear on the board, cards you can play as one-offs that will give you various different upgrades or reveal a tile. Plus, you can hold on to particular tiles, much like jokers in Balatro, to manipulate the game moving forward. I found myself absolutely hooked on this one, truly struggling to stop getting higher and higher scores. I strongly recommend playing the demo, but be prepared that there isn't more just yet. We've got some time before this one will go full release, but the demo definitely will scratch that itch for now. I've not seen anyone do a Minesweeper roguelike yet, so I'm glad to see something fresh. Next up is StarVaders. This is another one that really caught me off guard that I hadn't even heard of. You play as a mech defending the Earth from an alien invasion in a fusion of deck building and grid-based tactics, where high scores are your currency. Getting great combos is the aim. This one is so clean, with great music, great sound effects, and an awesome heat system that I normally find in games is just irritating when you overheat through the use of cards or whatever mechanic that game might have. The heat system in this is really well balanced, and I started playing this one and immediately found my time absolutely drain away. I loved it and just wanted to play more, and I loved the enemy animations and the various different challenges that this one put forward. Check out StarVaders, this is beautiful. Now the final one in here for me is Lost in Random, The Eternal Die, a dice-based action roguelike with a Tim Burton-esque aesthetic. I say dice-based, it's not. It's an action roguelike with a dice mechanic. The combat and world building are top tier. It is obviously a Hades-like, and there is nothing wrong with that if they put their own spin on it. Much like Sworn, if you like. But this just does it better. You play as Queen Alexandra and her die companion, Fortune, as you battle twisted foes, weird powerful relics and abilities, and roll the dice to escape this nightmarish realm. I immediately loved the art style in this one, and the combat in this one, which felt fresh with your dice companion move or attack, is hilarious. Awesome to add some randomness. And one of the unexpected things I loved was the upgrade talent system, which adds a match 3 style mini game of sorts to upgrade your talents. As you progress, you get these upgrade items which have different colors on them. You need to slot them into a grid system, and when you match 3, it locks in that additional boost to your various stats. But there's a huge amount of combinations to play with. And honestly, I can see that there is an infinite amount of builds, and I cannot wait for this one. The art, writing, and music are all on point, and I'm so glad to have been put onto this one by you guys in the comments. I am itching to play this one when it comes out. So that's my roundup of the roguelike demos I've played from your recommendations in the comments, future games fest and developer outreach. If any of these caught your eye, let me know in the comments which ones you're excited about. I'll be continuing to cover roguelikes, and once I hit that 1000 mark, we'll be looking to do some more series-based content or challenges. And I ask you, please reach out to me with suggestions of what you'd like to see. I want to do some challenges or playthroughs of old or new roguelikes. What can you come up with? If you didn't see my original top 20, check it out here. I've been Jammy Giraffe, sending love and positivity. As always, Jammy out.